Hello, everybody. Good to see you online. I'm assuming that a number of people will still be joining us at a later moment. This session will also be recorded, and you can always go back to the session later to remind yourself. I want to start with a couple of practical things for you. I have scheduled this session to be 45 minutes, but I really don't think we will need that much time. At least I will not need that much time to explain things to you. I would be available to answer questions if you have any, and if at the end of the session there are any questions left and you haven't had a chance to ask them, I would suggest that you email me with those questions. Another practical housekeeping point that I would like to share with you. I was trying to, but I suppose the technology was a little bit challenging. I was trying to find a way to share my screen in YouTube when I do these live things in YouTube, but I couldn't. So instead of sharing the screen, what I've put together for you is a PDF that you find in the Files folder of ManageBack. And it's that PDF that I'm going to be using. It's actually coming from a Google presentation, a PowerPoint. It is that PDF that I'm going to be using to talk you through a couple of things today. So if you want to look for it, you will find it on ManageBack in the folder called Files. Then the subfolder is CAS. And the title of the PDF is CAS Livestream, April 29th. That's where you will find the document, the PDF that I'm referring to. It will have a summary of the points, the talking points that I'm going to be using, and it would be a good reminder later on, I would say. So let me get started. And I'm using the PDF actually as kind of like a reminder for myself. So I'm on page 2 where it talks about involvement and evidence. We have a couple of talking points today. The first one is about how to be involved in these times of campus closure. Then we'll have a look at the interviews in CAS and how they will be conducted, because they're coming up tomorrow for the first of you and in the next couple of weeks for everybody. There's a few things that need to be completed before summer holiday. And then we'll wrap it up with what to do about projects in this time of social distancing. So those are the 4 talking points, and then we'll get to your questions, which, by the way, you're welcome to type into the chat box in YouTube at any moment, and we'll use those at the end. I'll try to address or make sure that all the questions are answered. So, starting from the second page of the PDF, again, for people joining a little bit later, you find it on ManageBack in the Files folder. In the folder for CAS, there's a PDF called CAS Livestream, April 29th. How about involvement? I think it's important to remind all of you of something that we discussed when we had our CAS workshops at the beginning of the school year. The purpose of CAS is really, in the big picture of CAS, is really that you make times for the things that will keep you happy and healthy. Now, under normal school circumstances, whatever we used to define as normal, that may have looked different than what it does today. So anything that you do, which could be creatively, which would be physically, or which would be helping other people, would qualify, would be fine. Now, I've had questions from people about, do we continue our existing activities? Do we create new activities? How do we do this? The choice is really yours. As with everything in CAS, CAS is a framework, and you're able and allowed to fill that in every way that you want. I've been in touch with CAS coordinators from other international schools, mostly European international schools, and some people are talking about, we want the students to continue their ongoing activities. I find that sometimes that is just not possible. If you were going to be on the softball team, okay, maybe the softball team has planned a number of things that you might be able to do at home, And if that is what you choose to do, then that's great. That's fine. Do not worry. That's okay. But if you find that this time of closure of the campus has really disrupted your CAS activities, your CAS experiences, and it's like, I'm not quite sure how to handle this right now, my recommendation for you, and you find that on the PDF also, is I would, if I were you, set up one experience that would be called campus closure experiences as kind of like a heading under which you can group various things that you are doing. Now, mind you, you would only do this if you find that the regular things you're doing aren't working. So if the regular things you're doing to, on a weekly basis, create a bit of time for yourself, if they're working, fine, there's no need to change anything. Continue what you're doing. Continue knitting, continue editing videos, continue playing your instrument, continue whatever it is that you're doing in the various strands. If that works, fine. If it doesn't work, and you're a little bit at a loss as to how can I show that I continue to be dedicated and involved in the CAS program, just set up on ManageBack a new experience, give that the name Campus Closure Experiences, and I suggest that every week, in terms of evidence for this, every week you just, in the evidence section, add a little note that says, this week I tried to do the following. I tried to do some doodling. I went for a walk. I went for a run. I took an online creative whatever lesson. I delivered food, or I went shopping for an elderly couple that lived next door. Those are all things that if you would like to, you can put them all in one category. What's the advantage of creating just one thing for this? You need to think about what's the path of the least energy, because if you're going to create various activities for this uncertain time where you don't really know, okay, maybe this week I'll do that, this week I'll do that, then you're going to have to create reflections and updates and evidence for each of those. If you just create the one experience called Campus Closure Experiences, and there every week you leave a little note, maybe every once in a while with a picture of, I baked a cake, I learned to draw, something specific or whatever, then that's fine. What we need is that you show that you're still involved and that you try. And it really cuts down on the number of reflections and so on. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, feel free to articulate some questions in the chat. I do want to let you know, and I will follow this up with an email after the live stream is finished, and I'll send you that PDF also. I do want to share with you that there's a couple of opportunities that I've been sent, and I'll make sure that when I send you an email, I will have the links to those. Volunteer The Hague is looking for people who play a musical instrument to do a concert for healthcare workers, and you do the concert from your own home. So it would be just to play a song. It's a really, really cool initiative that they're setting up. And they've also created a database where people can offer various support that they can provide for others in these Corona times, for people, for example, who are not able to leave their homes and so on. For example, go dog walking with a dog of somebody and do their shopping and things like that. I'll make sure that the link comes in the email when I send it to you for anybody who's looking for something and feels like, oh, this would be something that I can participate in. Mind you, just like if the campus were open, if any of these things serve the local Dutch community or Dutch or expat community, like the community away from the school, this would be an out-of-school service activity. So see if this is something for you. The second point in terms of opportunity would be the LSSA. I forget what the abbreviation is for, the Online Spring Festival. I'm assuming that most of you have heard about this in the daily bulletin announcements that teachers give you in the morning, or maybe your advisor told you about it. It's a sports competition between different international schools. There's about 10 international schools. That's going to take place next week. I think our softball team and our track and field team and so on are going to participate in this. So this would be a perfect CAS opportunity for those of you willing to participate in that. For more information, I would refer to the daily bulletin. If you don't have access to that, I will send it in the email that I'm going to send to you later. And you can also reach out to Mr. Bishop, the athletic director, or to Mrs. Bishop in the PE department. And they will be able to tell you more about it. And a final opportunity, and this would also be an out-of-school service activity. I have 2 seniors who are finishing up with their regular visits to an oma, a grandmother, an elderly person in the community, Mrs. Varkevisser, Marianne. Because they're graduating and they're seniors, they would like to pass this on to juniors who would like to, on a regular basis, but that's up to you to decide when you want to do that, meet with Ms. Varkevisser. She is tech savvy, so at the moment it is possible to do this virtually online. And my 2 seniors, by the way, they're Sven Nash and Emilia. They are willing to connect you and be part of the first virtual meeting to, get you started. If you're interested in this, the only requirement will be that you have to speak Dutch, because Marianne doesn't really feel comfortable doing this in English. So it's a little bit a limiting factor, but those of you who are looking for an out-of-school and a very valuable out-of-school service, connecting with an older woman in Wassenaar who lives alone and really appreciates kind of like the company of some ASH students, please let me know and I will make the link for you. I will match you. So much in terms of involvement and evidence. Again, if that is insufficient, if you have any questions, please put a question in the chat box. For your CAS interviews, all your interviews now, with school closure being extended, all the interviews will take place online. This morning, I have updated, based on the new online virtual learning schedule, I have updated all conflicts. I've checked PowerSchool Learning and made sure that nobody has an interview scheduled when they have a class. Based on the new schedule, the online schedule. You should find, everybody should be able to go into their Google Calendar, and you will find the event in your Google Calendar listed as, and the title will be Second CAS Interview, and then between brackets, your first name and your last name. And it will say the starting time and it will say the end time. When you click on that event and it opens up, you will notice that there is a tab, and if you're looking at the PDF, you will see a visual of this. Otherwise, I will send you, all of you, after this live stream, the PDF anyway. But there is a link that says Join with Google Meet. All you need to do is, at the time when your interview is scheduled, click on that link and everything else will be automatic. You don't have to do anything else. You will connect automatically. Mind you, it is possible, because I will send you a reminder and then you will see what my other interviews are that day. It is possible that you'll have to wait in Hangouts for 2-3 minutes as I finish up with a person whose interview was just before yours. So just realize I haven't forgotten about you. It's just that I'm finishing up with the previous person. And if that seems to be going on a little bit longer than just 2-3 minutes, then what I usually do is send you a chat message saying I'm just 3 minutes late or so. But if it's only a couple of minutes, if it's only 2-3 minutes, then that might happen. Just be aware of that. Be aware also that the interview will be recorded. My only way to get the recording of our interview like we do when we're meeting at school, to get that on Manage Back is by doing a video recording. After the interview, when Google is finished processing the video recording, I will delete the video recording and I will just extract the sound from that recording. But I can't, during the interview, there's no way, I haven't found the technical way to do that yet. So the video recording is only to make sure that I can save the sound file, and that sound file goes onto Manage Back. As you may have noticed with other online meetings, there might be people coming in and out to our meeting. We have, in the past, I've had Ms. Rickdahl drop in on some of the interviews. I've had Dr. Lowe, I've had other members of the leadership team stop by, or Mr. Ferreira stop by in these interviews. They will have their microphone off, they will have their camera off. It's just as if they're walking into the office and, checking to see what's going on. Don't be surprised if that happens, and probably has happened to you in other classes also. A third point I wanted to briefly address is, what are the things that you should complete before summer holiday in terms of CAS and in terms of making sure that you're up to date with CAS. At the end of year one, you should have all of the experience you participated in year one marked as complete. And if you do not have the PDF that I've been referring to a couple of times already in front of you, have a look at this when I email it to you later this afternoon. But the idea is that you do your CAS questions, your reflections, and your evidence for everything that you participated in this year. Now, this is the kind of work that you can already start working on proactively. For some of you, this might be a good time because you may have more time now than you might have, later on. If you want to avoid having to do this during the summer, you certainly, absolutely want to avoid doing this at the beginning of next school year for a couple of reasons. One, because it makes no sense going back and reflecting on, for example, the High School Musical that was in November and doing that almost a year later. Really, that makes no sense. That's not going to be a very meaningful reflection. So you might want to try to get that out of the way. Keep in mind that for all of these things, CAS questions as well as reflections, you can record them. And when you do, that should be a huge time saver. So just create a sound file and upload that into, in the CAS questions, there's no room to upload it. Just leave a note and say sound file, put the title of what that file is, and then upload it into the evidence section. But there you can attach it. So be proactive and get some of that work out of the way. And this time of closure of the campus, if there's not too much other stuff on your plate, maybe a good time to start making progress with that. I'm not going to hold you in that sense accountable. And I know that this is a tricky thing for me to say. If I say I'm not going to be checking this until the beginning of next school year, then some people might feel like, you know what, that's still such a long time away. It can wait. That's probably not a very good thing to do. The thing to do would be to try and get it out of the way. And trust me when I say, I've just finished interviews with the seniors. Everybody is saying the first semester of senior year is like really, really busy. You do not want to be doing CAS reflections from a year before at that time anymore. Now, if some of you say, I'd rather do it during the summer holiday, fine with me. But keep in mind that for most of your CAS experiences from this year, if you spend 10 minutes recording, if you're going to write, it's probably going to take longer. But if you're going to be recording this, 10 minutes per activity is probably more than enough. You should be done. If that's going to take you more, there's really something wrong. And don't hesitate then to reach out to me and say, look, is there really no other way I can do this more quickly? Because I can't get this done under 10 minutes. Typing is a whole different thing, I think. That's a choice you have. Your next update is due Monday, May 11th. By the way, that's your last one for year one. So at that time, you just need to make sure you have the regular stuff. I'm not expecting that you have all of your CAS questions and your reflections done. I am expecting that you will have them done for things that are way in the past. So if the High School Musical reflection for this year is still not finished, or your volleyball season, really that should be finished. The other ones that you're still working on right now, because I sometimes get that question too, well, I'm not quite done with this activity. I'm still playing an instrument, for example. Should I do my reflections? Why not? If you've started, work on that instrument, playing that instrument in September, and you will continue to do it until June, okay, continue to upload your evidence until June, or every once in a while show that you're still actually doing this. But you can already do your reflections. You can do your CAS questions. That doesn't have to wait. You probably have things to say. So I hope that that's clear, and I hope it makes sense to you as to how can you do this. Don't be shy to reach out if you have any questions about that. And okay, this is really far away, but maybe one thing you already might want to do is giving some thought to what will your CAS next year look like. Are you going to be involved in the High School Musical? This morning it was announced what it will be, and work on that will start soon, I think. Are you planning on certain things that you say, yeah? Are there gaps that you're still going to have to take care of, an out-of-school service or a project, for example? Start thinking, where am I? And in our interview, we'll talk about that too. By the way, this is probably also a good reminder. The mobile app on ManageBack is now available for Android and iOS. So you can find all the information on ManageBack about that. And then the last point for me to share with you is about projects. Some people are worried about their CAS project being on hold because, of course, one of the things that is connected to a CAS project is the collaboration piece. You need to work together, you need to plan and initiate, and you need to collaborate. Be creative is the best that I can say in kind of like a general meeting. If you have any specific questions for you, bring them up during the interview, or put them in the chat for addressing in a moment. But be creative in how you can continue. I've heard some really good ideas from people who checked in with me and say, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I change this or that? One was about a live event that might involve up to 400 or 500 people being replaced by an online challenge. That's a brilliant idea. That's a brilliant idea. It's still continuing on the same work. It can be done online in terms of the collaboration and the planning and the initiating, and then you use the power of social media and connections to try and challenge people for things. So by all means, yes, go ahead with that. If you're at a loss, if you say like, I don't see how this can work for me, don't hesitate to reach out, okay? One thing I am going to ask, because I'm always really worried when I see people without a project at the end of year one thing I'm going to ask is that if you have not completed a project, when you submit your update on May 11th, and you haven't yet completed a project, or there's no sign of it, or it's not working out, that you include a comment on that in your update. And you might say, I know I haven't completed one, but I've got it all under control. This is my idea. Great. Or I haven't completed one and I'm really lost. I don't know what to do, because then I can help you. But if you leave it out of the configuration, we may run into some difficulties next year, which could have been avoided. So just let's have some honest and open conversation about that. Where are you with the project? If it's completed, great, okay? But if it's not done yet, and especially if there's no sign of it, make sure you comment on it. I really want to make it clear that you don't have to do anything for CAS during the summer. Remember, the purpose of CAS is to be happy and healthy when you're under school pressure, when you're under pressure from work. The holiday is typically a time when everybody's off. Is it not allowed to put something that you do during the summer in your CAS portfolio? No, you may. If you would like to put things that you work on during the summer in your CAS portfolio, that is fine. Do you want to do that? That's your choice. If you do, you're going to have to write it up. You're going to have to provide some evidence. You're going to have to do some reflections. So you need to ask yourself, is it worth that price? If I have to do some reflections on this and I have to get some evidence for it, is it worth doing that? The answer might be yes, if it is a project. If you feel like, well, I can actually do my project or part of my project during the summer. Okay, if you want to, it's fine. all right, or an out-of-school service, something to get out of the way. But let me make it absolutely clear, you don't have to do any CAS during the summer. Hopefully the whole summer will be nothing but CAS, and it's the schoolwork that's a little bit extra, maybe a reading in your higher levels that your teacher will ask you to complete, and maybe a little bit of your extended essay. I really want to put in a plug for the extended essay here also. Don't fall into the trap that a lot of people fall into of perfectionism. This stage of the extended essay is a very chaotic stage. The time that you're in right now, it's like, well, I get all this information from my research. I got my research question kind of like clear in my head, but I'm not 100% sure. So how do I make sense of this? And then people are waiting to start writing. Don't do that. Realize that the writing you do now will be messy, and it's fine. It might be part in one language, which may be your native language. Let's say you're Dutch and you write part of it in Dutch and part of it in English. Don't worry about that. Maybe you don't have paragraphs yet. Maybe, you have some bullet points, or maybe you just put in a question and say, this I need to further look up. That's okay. Start writing, and learn to live with the fact that it's not perfect. It's going to be messy. That will get you, a long way. And we talk a little bit about this in the interview also, and that's where I can give you some individual feedback and attention. Finally, if you have anything, please use the chat function. And right now, I don't see any questions. Oh, I see two questions. If you have any further questions, please use that. Otherwise, send me an email, work with each other, schedule a quick meeting if you want to, or also bring it up during your interview, so that you're not left with like, well, how do I have to do this? The point I want to conclude on is this really should not be anything that causes stress. On the contrary, this should be something that, is like, I got this under control. I'm sure you're all doing things that we could say we can classify. Whether that is a one-off this time of like, okay, I learned to cook a pasta meal, for example. My mom taught me this. Fine. Okay. And use the social bit, with the social distancing, of course, but use the social part. Challenge each other maybe to do something. Have fun. But do not sweat about the CAS. Just make sure that we can justify and show we're still working on this. We're doing that. We're taking care of ourselves. Okay, the circumstances have changed, but we're still working on this. And don't sweat the small stuff. Okay. So on that note, I want to thank everybody for their attention. I'm going to be here until I don't see any more questions or I see that everybody has left. I'll start answering the questions in the chat box. Feel free to add more questions there if you want to, but also feel free to leave this meeting if you want. It is recorded, and so once the live is finished, you can go back and look up things from this by using the same link, and I will follow it up with an email later this afternoon. All right. Asmi says, for this volunteer concert, will we pre-record our song? I cannot tell you for sure. That is something you'll have to check with Volunteer The Hague. The announcement that I've seen on this was in English. So you would not have to be able to speak Dutch in order to be able to participate in this. And of course, it is music. So when I send you the link with the information, I think it would be, well, you might find some information already in the link. And otherwise, it's a quick email to the people at Volunteer The Hague. Karina asked, can you do the same project next year, continuing to lead a club, for example? Absolutely. Yes, so not a problem at all. Normally, but what is normal in these circumstances now? Normally, this is the time of year that most clubs are deciding about leadership for next year, because the seniors are signing off, and then they need juniors or 10th graders to take over from them. If you and the supervisor and maybe the other leaders have already talked about this, and it turns out that you want to do that, that's fine. Now, I do see in your question also, Karina, you say, can you do the same project next year? I really want to make it clear, if you have completed a project this school year, and you've done a CAS project, you don't have to do another CAS project next year. One CAS project in the 2 years in the IB is sufficient. It's not that you're not allowed to do another one, but you don't have to do another one. I hope that that's clear. So if you want to be a leader next year for the same club as what you're doing now, or a different one, and that's also a project, well, then you'll have 2 projects, which is fine, okay, as long as you have one at least. Rana says, I'm planning on some events for next year's for a club that I'm leading. Would that count as next year's CAS, or may I still put it as initiative and planning for 11th grade? The second part. So whatever you're doing right now is work that's CAS right now. So, let's say you spend half an hour per week on some things that you're planning for next year's, I don't know which club, Rana, but I'll just say Amnesty International, for example, and I'm planning activities for next year. That's fine. That's an hour of CAS that you're doing now. And so you can put that for grade 11. Vlad, can a project be extended to next year if you haven't yet completed it this year? Yes, that's not a problem. That is possible. Just be careful with how that works, because for some projects, it's got to be feasible. Let me put it this way. Let's say you are playing on the softball team, and you're assistant coaching with the softball team or the baseball team. That doesn't make sense to carry that over to next year. But if you are a leader of Amnesty International this year, and you're going to be a leader next year also, that makes sense. So in that sense, it works. So I think it depends a bit on the circumstances, but in principle, that's fine. That's okay. I don't see any additional questions right now. So I'll just hang around here until I see that everybody's kind of like signed out, unless there's people who have their screen on and have left and are not sitting there, then I can sit here all day. But if you still have additional questions, shoot me an email, schedule a quick meeting, bring them up during the interview, or put them in the chat box right now. Thanks, guys. We miss you. We hope everybody's doing well. Be creative in how you handle this situation. I know it's not easy, but it will also bring new opportunities. So stay safe, stay healthy, and take good care of yourself and good care of each other. All right. And I'll just wait to see if there's more questions coming in. Thanks. Okay, I don't really see any more questions. If anybody is still planning on sending a question, can you just send me like a quick word, wait, so I know I have to wait, and otherwise I'll end the meeting here. Okay, I think that's it then. Thank you.